Episode 7, The Beatles 6.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the Beatles Come to America podcast. I'm your host, Tom Gouker, along with the Beatles Guru Brooke Halpin. Today, we're chatting about the Beatles 6, which was released in the summer of 1965, June 14, 1965 to be exact. We have some housekeeping notes before we get into that show. I have a podcast called Something Came from Baltimore, which is a music interview podcast. It's more jazz, R&B, and blues, and it's not really about Baltimore, but we want you to subscribe. The link is in the show notes. We want you to be a part of that Be More music scene. The Beatles Guru Brooke Halpin is all-knowing when it comes to Beatles. He sweats the Beatle DNA, and that's the way I like it. Follow him on his Facebook page called Come Together with the Beatles and Brooke Halpin. The link is in the show notes. And we have our own Facebook page called The Beatles Come to America. We're asking you to subscribe and then think about the Beatles albums. See if you can rank them from best to worst. It's kind of hard to do. What we did was we did it at the beginning of the podcast run, and then we turned around and realized that we had to change it up a little. It's a little harder than you think. Just remember that we are a DIY lo-fi tech recording. We're both in our living rooms, not in the studio. We hope you subscribe, participate, enjoy. Just remember, we love the Beatles, and just be gentle on the comments. Now, let's get into the interview. It's the Beatles Come to America, Episode 7, The Beatles 6. Welcome, Brooke Halpin, to the Beatles Come to America.
Tom, they came to America, and they conquered America and most of the world, and it was like something we had never seen before. Unparalleled, unmatched to this very day. And here we are, all these many years later, talking about it.
Yeah.
That's how incredible and powerful it was and is.
We ended at Beatles 65, so that was December 15th, 1964, that was released. Then we had the early Beatles, which is just a duplication of Introduction to the Beatles. That came out March 22nd, 1965. That went as high as 43 and went platinum. So now we're looking at roughly 2 more months later, they do the Beatles 6. It's a 27 and 7 minutes and 45 seconds. It went platinum. It took its time though. Probably because Help came out in August and kind of slammed it because it was just a more exciting project. And then we had Rubber Soul at the end of the year. So just that 64 was busy, 65 is almost equally busy also. Album is half of the Beatles for Sale and half of Help. The majority of it is Beatles for Sale, a couple Help items. And 2 of them that made it to the past masters. They weren't released on albums, and that's just
right.
The song Bad Boy, and yes, it is. As we talked about 65, it was kind of a country vibe, salute to Americana. What's your thought on this album?
Oh, I thought Beatles 65 was the precursor to folk rock. I thought they were, in terms of the way they were evolving, it was where they were going, which, of course, would lead to Rubber Soul, which is definitively a folk rock LP. This album is, I'd say, a bit of a mess. Number 1, it's called Beatles 6, and it's the 7th album that Capitol released. So what the hell is that? Straight away, it's not the 6th album, it's the 7th. The title's wrong, number 1, which I don't understand. Why are they calling it Beatles 6? Does anyone know? Please, tell me. Tell me, I'm listening. Nobody knows. Because it's not the 5th, it's not the 6th album, it's the 7th. So number 1, that's the problem. Even though, at the time, they could have called it Beatle 29 or Beatle 003, and everyone would have gone out and bought it. It didn't matter back then, when they were released. It didn't matter what the names of the albums were. But in retrospect, looking back, these are reasonably good questions, I'd say. The album is a mix. It's a mixture of many different things. As you said, they're pulling from 2 different LPs that were released in the UK. They got 4 covers on here. They have 7 original songs, and they're all different. The 7 original songs are quite different. So, what kind of an album is this? Is it a rock and roll album? Is it a folk rock album? Is it a country rock album? Yes. But I think overall that they were harkening back. If you just look at the album, this album by itself, it's more rock and roll than it is folk rock, I think. Well, you got Kansas City. You've got Bad Boy. You've got Dizzy Miss Lizzy. And then you've got the original 8 Days a Week. So straight away, those are rock and roll songs, no doubt. And then you get into the other tracks, which could be called folk rock, country rock, that kind of thing. So this album is a mixture of many different things. I do like the cover. This is cover. They're extremely happy. Look at their faces.
With most of their album covers, they look exhausted.
Yeah, this is a great cover. And I love that shirt that George has on. That shirt with the white collar matching with the white cuff and a different color shirt. What's interesting is they're holding on to something, right? What are they holding on to? Does anyone know? Tom, do you know?
Is that an open-ended question? I actually thought they were putting all their hands together.
Oh, no, they're holding on to something. All right, I'll tell you what they're holding on to. They're holding on to a very, very large knife. Very large knife. Because as you can see, the picture is cropped, right? What's going on beneath their hands? Well, this large knife is going into this huge cake. And that's what they're doing. Four of them are holding onto the knife, and they're putting it into this large cake. I thought that it was a button that they were pressing to actually press the camera that was facing them. That would make sense, right? Kind of looks like that in a way. That they're taking the picture by snapping a button. Because back then they had those kind of things, those devices. Anyhow, great cover. And then it goes on to say, Capitol says, that this is new improved full dimensional stereo. Well, that sounds pretty exciting. And this is from the world's most popular foursome, which, of course, at the time it was released, it was absolutely true. So that's my general overview of the album as we now can begin to go into the individual tracks.
Yeah, I think when we go through some of these, especially the remakes, they did them all in one take. I think they were just stretching out for music. I mean, they were just pumping out so much music in a short period of time that they went to the live hits that they knew were successful when they were touring. But like the first one, which is Kansas City, that was a Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller recorded song in 1952. Little Willie Littlefield recorded it first. That wasn't that big of a hit. It was Wilbert Harrison in 1959 that made it a hit. And then Little Richard did a version of it and added the hey, hey, hey part.
Right.
That version of Little Richard only hit 95. It's awesome. It's a good song. I mean, they did this song in one take. They worked with Little Richard, and they recorded this in 10/18/1964, and they recorded a lot of other songs. But they knocked this out of the box, one take.
Yep. It's great. It's a great recording. It's a great performance. McCartney's vocals, he's in excellent form. He sounds fantastic. And by listening to the song, you can hear that they're having fun. Their good time feeling of this recording and I know because I've been in many, many recording studios, is that when you're feeling really good and you're having a lot of fun and you're laughing and everybody's happy with each other, it gets into the actual song. And you can hear it on Kansas City. They're having a total ball, especially when George and John answers Paul on the hey, 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 and they're going hey, 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 hey. I mean, you can almost hear them laughing. It's wonderful. I love it. I love it very much. Now, it's very interesting that they did perform this in 1964 when they did their tour of the U.S. They performed it only once on the tour, and they performed it where else? In Kansas City. Kansas City was not on the schedule. That was to be their day off. Do you know this story by any chance, Tom? Why this happened?
No, give me this one. I never heard this one.
Okay. So Brian gave the guys one day off. They're bouncing all over the country. One day in this city, the next day in the next city. They were working. It was a hard day's night. They were working, hard day's night. They were working like dogs. Okay. Charles Finley, this entrepreneur, wealthy gentleman from Kansas City, was determined to get the Beatles to perform in Kansas City. So he approached Brian Epstein, or he got hold of Brian. He offered them $50,000 to play their show. Now, this is 1964. And Brian goes, sorry, Charles, but, the boys need a day off. Okay, so Finley says, okay, tell you what, I'll give you $100,000. Now, also keep in mind, we're talking about a 25-minute performance. So, $100,000 for 25 minutes on stage is a lot of money in 1964. Brian goes, no, sorry, I'm very sorry, but we just can't squeeze it in. Charles Finley says, okay, I will pay you $150,000. And Brian says, let me check with the boys. $150,000. So Brian goes to the boys, and they say, whatever you want to do, Brian's fine, whatever you want. So Brian, being no fool, and realizing that this is much, much far exceeded what they were getting in the other cities, by hundreds of thousands. That's how they got to play in Kansas City on September 17th, because of Charles Finley's insistence and because he basically bought the Beatles. Interesting story.
That's a fine art of negotiation, right there. Yeah.
Yeah. It just takes money. It's like, how much money does it take to say yes? Yeah.
So our second song on the album is 8 Days a Week, which was actually the single from this album. There's only one single, which is kind of weird. The backside, the B-side was I Don't Want to Spoil the Party. This is their seventh number one they've had in less than a year. This is the first records that have a fade-in intro. This is also the first song that they brought to the studio unfinished, that they worked on it in the studio. They overdubbed the hand clappings later. John didn't like this song at all. He thought it was really lightweight. There was a discussion of like who did what. I think this was more Paul than John, but they both had their hand in it. There's a discussion also about who created the 8 Days a Week. Are you familiar with that?
Extremely so.
All right, you go on that. Tell me about the 8 Days a Week. How was that set up?
Mr. Paulie McCartney couldn't. He was banned from driving his car because he got a traffic ticket, probably for speeding or something. So he had to take a chauffeur over to John's house. So hires a chauffeur, and Paul, being the sociable guy that he is, says to the chauffeur, "Hey, how you doing?" "Okay." "So what's how are you?" And the chauffeur says, "Oh, working 8 days a week." Paul didn't say anything, and he goes into John's house and says, "Hey, John, I've got this great idea for a song. How about this title here, 8 Days a Week?" And that's how it happened. I believe that's the true story. There's some other story that Paul said that I don't believe the other one. He said that Ringo made it up, but Ringo denies it. So that's how Paul came up with the title. And then he goes in and they have a writing session and they work on the song together. Well, it's the same kind of fun. You can hear, again, they're having a good time when they're recording this. The same kind of fun energy that they had on Kansas City. They were happy. They were on top of the world. They were back in the studio. They had new material. It's, of course, a very positive song. You know, I ain't got nothing but love, babe. Wow, nothing but love. I mean, that's, how wonderful is that? Everybody loves to hear that. So, yeah, I love it. Great song.
The third song on the album is You Like Me Too Much. It's a George Harrison composed song. They recorded actually on February 17, 1965. There is a Horner Planet electric piano that John played. I know that George Martin and Paul were playing the Steinway, but not together, in different parts of the song. Like, this is a nice attempt. It's a good song from George. I forget about it and had to play it today. And I was like, oh yeah, I do like this song. What's your thought on this song?
I love this song. But what's interesting about this song is that here's George, the lead guitar player, who wrote it, and there's very little guitar on the song. It's predominantly a keyboard song. The introduction is all keyboards. Like you said, John's playing the electric Horner piano. George Martin and Paul are playing the Steinway piano. It's a very unusual introduction. You think George, being a guitar player, would have a guitar introduction, but no. So that's unusual, and I love it. I love it. It's a great beginning to the song. When you hear the beginning, you don't know what's coming. When you hear it, it's like, okay, what is this all about? This sounds different. Da 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 plane, and then all of a sudden, oh, you've gone away this morning. It's almost like two different things are going on. It's like the introduction, you know. Do we really know what's going to happen after the intro? We don't. So there's that element of surprise in the way that this song is put together, which I like very much. George's double-track lead vocal, and as we mentioned, very little guitar, except there is this wonderful, there's a dialogue going on in the instrumental break between the lead guitar and the piano. Very cool. Very cool. Very different, too. Very, very different. Love it, compositionally, the way that's done. And the song is kind of cocky in a way. You know, George was kind of cocky. Because he's saying, listen, you're not going to leave me, even though you should leave me. You're not going to leave me. No, because you like me too much, and I like you. It's a great lyric. I love it. And that's John, of course, playing that electric Horner piano, electric piano, and John's really, really rocking on the piano throughout the whole song.
Okay, on the fourth song, we have Bad Boy. This is a cover. Larry Williams should be rich off the Beatles because he sold a lot of records through the Beatles, not through himself.
Right.
This song did not chart at all.
Yeah, well, we got Paul on doing an overdub on electric piano. George plays a double-tracked lead guitar, and that's why the guitar is so important in this recording. The sound of his lead guitar is amazing. The sound of it. He plays so well. And it's this dialogue again. You know, John sings, that little kid moved into my neighborhood. And then George answers, that's the setup, right? That's the setup through the entire song. And it's so exciting to hear them going back and forth. You know, John sings part of the one lyric. George answers on this great lead guitar playing. I absolutely love it. Always did, always will. Yep. definitely.
And the fact that this song is roughly very rare, I mean, they got this off of a record that they received in England, and it didn't chart, so it felt like their song because no one really knew the original.
Well, there again, you see, it's like the twist and shout thing we talked about, because people, when this came out, right, in June of '65, and you listen, everybody runs out and buys the Beatles 6, which is really Beatles 7, and we listen to Bad Boy. We're not going like, oh, look at Larry Williams wrote the song. No, we're going, oh my God, it's the Beatles. You know, it's a Beatles song. And it's, again, you want to talk about rock and roll. Oh. And that's why I think overall, as we continue to go through the tracks, that this album is that on Beatles 65, I feel as though they were evolving toward folk rock idiom and getting away from their rock and roll sound of 64. And now we hear this, and it's almost like it's back to rock and roll with some other songs mixed in. So, interesting.
Track number 5 is I Don't Want to Spoil the Party. It is like a country rock song. The Byrds said that this was one of the first songs that they listened to that made them feel that that's the direction they wanted to go.
So I understand you don't want to spoil the party. Well, John didn't want to spoil the party. And this is another example of coming off of like, I'm a loser, right? Lyrically, it's not that far removed from the lyrics of I'm a loser to I don't want to spoil the party. Because the girl stood him up. He lost. He's losing again. He's a loser. And I don't want to spoil the party. He's going through rejection. He's been rejected. He's been turned down. Very similar emotion lyrically to I'm a loser. Now, this can be called country rock. It could also be called folk rock. You see, so here again, there's this mixture of, okay, are they a rock and roll band or are they going toward folk rock? And the answer, of course, is yes. They're a rock and roll band, and they're also doing folk rock. It's not like the Beatles can only do one thing, which is one of the reasons why I love them so much. Now, people have said that Paul is singing the low harmony on the verses, John singing the other voice. Other people say it's John on the low voice and Paul is on the upper voice. Nope. It's John harmonizing with himself on the verses. Absolutely. At 100%, I am 1,000,000% sure. When you listen to it after I've said it to you, you listen to it again, and you will hear that it's John harmonizing with himself, doing an overdub on the verses. Paul comes in on the bridge. By the way, again, it's the introspection going on lyrically, as we discussed. But also, there's no chorus in this song. There's no chorus. It's verses and bridges. There's no chorus. If they had done what they would usually do, right, they would do the verse and then they would do that bridge. I still love her. If I find her, I'll be glad. I still love her. Then they would have done, I don't want to spoil the party. I don't want to spoil the party. But they didn't do that. That's where the chorus would have been. So it's very unusual in terms of the songwriting. For some reason, they said, no chorus on this one. And maybe that's one reason why it's a B-side, and that's where it stayed.
Number 6 was Words of Love, which is a Buddy Holly song. This song was released in June 20, 1957. It wasn't a hit for Buddy Holly. It didn't do too well, but it wouldn't really matter because That'll Be the Day is his next single, and he made some money, so he's good. The Diamonds did this song. They doo-wopped it, and it hit number 13. But when it comes to the Beatles doing this cover, they were strict Buddy Holly version. They did that.
Yeah.
John Paul and George sang in together in harmony, and boy, did that sell that song. This is something that they did live in 1958 to 1962, so it only took them 2 takes to do this song, and it's dreamy, and it's it's a near perfect song for me.
Dreamy is a very, very good description. The vocals are lush. They're lush. They're so smooth. They're like satin smooth. And they're in their lower register. So it's almost like they're whispering the words of love. You know, it's not like, words I love you. You know, it's words I love you. Well, they're even saying, whisper soft and true. So they're taking the lyric whisper and they're actually performing it as a whisper. How brilliant is that? That's part of the magic of the Beatles and part of the magic of what they did with this one song. So it's whispering. We have to sing as if we're whispering when we do the harmonies. And that's exactly what they did in the studio. And it's a mind blower. It's absolutely perfect. And George's guitar is so fantastic. The sound of his guitar, which was double track, it's got that bright tone. Now, here you have the voices, which are the opposite of bright. They're mellow. They're a mellow tone. Words I love you. And then, I mean, you couldn't get more contrast. And again, that's absolute brilliance. To do that is brilliant. To take those soft voices and then have the guitar tone being just the opposite. Oh, God, it's so good. So good.
It only was 2 takes. Can you imagine, like, going in the studio, 2 takes, bang, the song's done? It just seems so more complicated than that.
Yeah, well, again, they've been playing it for years. Yeah, they had it down, shall we say.
Oh, yeah, it's a part of their thing. And again, if you're going to do a cover, you might as well do one that feels like it's your song. Very few people knew this song. The doo-wop version is completely different than the Buddy Holly one.
Yeah.
And we flipped the album over, and we're ready to do What You Doing. To me, this is very similar to a song, You Won't See Me. Like, it has that kind of structure.
Well, let me chime in. I have to say that lyrically for Paul, it's different for him. I'd say it's more mature lyrics, because rather than just, because, you know, Paul had written so many love songs. Of course, John did too in '64. But now he's actually putting the girl on the spot. And he's saying, hey, well, wait a minute now. Wait, whoa. Look what you're doing. Hey, I'm feeling blue, and would it be so much to ask of you? It's like, what the hell are you doing to me? Now, that's a damn good lyric. I think so. And it's so unlike Paul. As you said, it's getting into more like You Won't See Me. It's the same kind of vibe, right? Hey, you know what? You keep doing that, and look what you're doing to me. Guess what? You won't see me. So, yes, absolutely, the lyric connection between what you're doing and You Won't See Me is absolutely there. There's no question about it. Paul was the kind of guy who he wanted his woman to be with him. You know, he was a Beatle. He was the breadwinner. And he was involved with a career woman. And her career was just as important to her as Paul's career was as important to him with the Beatles. And that was a problem for Paul. Because Paul wanted her with him. Certain events, special events, traveling, whenever he wanted her to be with him. And she could not do that because she'd be called off to Bristol to do a performance in Bristol, England. She'd go off to some other theater. She was a very accomplished and sought-after actress at this time. That was the problem in their relationship.
The Jane Asher-themed songs is almost as similar to the Adele album of sadness and upset. He wrote some good stuff about her.
Yeah, he did, yeah. But also with this song, the instrumental is brilliant. there's actually a rolling piano part. It's incredible. It's incredible. That's George Martin, with Harrison's lead guitar. The problem with this, though, is that right from the very beginning, when Paul goes, "Look what you're doing, I'm feeling blue," and the harmony on the "look" and it's not tight. It's sloppy. Listen to it. It's not tight. I mean, for the Beatles to be putting things out that are sloppy, I mean, were they really in that much of a hurry? I was really surprised that they did that. And then even on the third, I guess it's after the solo, the piano and the guitar solo, then the harmony is even worse. It's almost buried. You can barely hear it because it's not that good. And the mix in this song also is uneven. It's an uneven mix. So it's a shame because I think this song could have been produced better, and I don't know why they let it go out this way.
The next song, Yes It Is, took 14 takes.
Well, there you go.
So that's
14 takes on that one.
Yeah. It's a B-side for Ticket to Ride. There's a really complex three-part harmony, and George is using a volume pedal guitar. Is that what the wah, 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 is that the sound for that?
Yeah, it was the precursor to what will become the wah-wah pedal. It's a volume pedal. Yeah.
I love this song. This song hit number 46 because it was a B-side.
Yes, it is. It's true. Please don't wear red tonight. So the question is why? Why does John want her not to wear red?
This is what I said
red
tonight.
Is the color that will make me blue in spite of you. Now, what he's doing is lyrically, again, is brilliant because he's using colors. Please don't wear red tonight because it will make him blue. Brilliant. What a fantastic lyric. He could have said, please don't wear red tonight, it'll make me sad, right? It'll make me cry. Any of those would have worked. But no, it'll make me blue, red and blue, using colors. Oh, God, this is incredible. I just love that. The harmony is dissonant. This boy, he said that he was trying to write This Boy Again. Is that what you said earlier? I think you did. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like a sequel.
This boy, the harmony is smoother, and the notes that they sang in This Boy are very consonant, is the musical term. They blend with each other. On Yes It Is, they're singing dissonant notes. And when you listen to it very carefully, it almost sounds like they're singing out of tune in places. It really does. Because they're singing these, like you said, complex three-part harmony. Very, very difficult to do. And for it to come off the way you want it to. They could have done it more like This Boy and not sing the dissonant notes. But they wanted to try. Of course, it's the Beatles. Let's do something different. And that's what they did. The volume pedal at times, and by the way, the volume pedal is double-tracked, and no one talks about that anywhere. You can definitely hear two lead guitar parts being played with George using the volume pedal. And at the very end of the song, when I remember hearing this for the first time, something like that. And I thought, what the hell? They have a violin at the end of the song. I thought it was a violin they put on at the very end of the song. Of course, it's George, the way he's using the volume pedal, which was something that he had to really work on to get it going right. It's not just like you plug it in, you plug your cord into the volume pedal, then you plug the cord from the volume pedal into your amp, and then you start playing. No, it's a coordinated effort between hitting the notes at the right time and then using the pedal accordingly so that you can get a right sound. He did a fantastic job using the volume pedal, which was not used, as far as I know, at that point So I don't think it was used before. That may be the case. Certainly wasn't used any other time before on a Beatle recording. And that's part of the magic of the song, is George's lead guitar work.
The third song on side 2 is Dizzy Miss Lizzy, and again, this is a Larry Williams song.
Yeah.
Hit number 69 in 1958. So it didn't tear, the radio apart until the Beatles played it. George did double tracking. John's vocals are awesome. I personally like the original better. The double tracking of the guitar is a little too much.
It's messed up. It's
Yeah.
messed up. Well, okay. So John's vocal, A+. And he's also pumping away, and now he has the Vox organ. So instead of the corner electric piano, now he's got the Vox organ going on. Okay. Different sound. The thing that makes this song so infectious is the repetitive guitar riff. Through the whole verses. Keep repeating the same thing even without going down that little note that I did. However, when you listen to this, you can hear that before, when George, after the first solo, he sounds like he's losing his part, where he doesn't know where to play it. So you can hear it.
Yeah.
You could actually absolutely hear it.
Yeah.
And because they were laying down the music without John doing a guide vocal, is my only explanation why that happened. But then, after the second solo, then he actually plays a wrong note. No, I'm sorry. Right before the second solo, he plays a wrong note. You can hear it. And again, it's like, why didn't they take the time? What is the story with this? It's two songs on the same album that, to me, could have been better, could have been cleaned up. Why didn't they take the time and let George just do that little part again? But they didn't. They left it in, and I don't know why. And it always bothers me when I hear that. And I heard it, when I first heard it, it bothered me, and it still bothers me. And you hear it as well, don't you?
Oh yeah, this song is borderline annoying, and it shouldn't be because it's a cool song. Has all the qualities of like a really cool song, and it's grating to the ears.
It's their rock and roll. Again, they're doing their rock and roll, their roots, and John's vocals are fantastic. So it's a shame that happened with George's lead guitar part.
Yeah, I would scrap that and start it all over again. The next song is Tell Me What You See. It's a Paul song.
This is one of the best songs on the album. This is obscure. Nobody talks about it. It's one of the best recordings. The recording and the production is superb. It's perfect. It's perfectly done, as opposed to what we spoke about earlier. Written by Paul. George doesn't play the guitar on this track, which I think is a little unusual. Paul plays a fantastic electric piano. On the break, oh my goodness. It is so good. And John and Paul's harmony is absolutely, dreamily, it's perfect. It's so damn good. I think that this is a very underrated song. I would call this a folk rock song. So here we go again. Is this a rock album? Is it a folk rock? Is it teetering, going now toward more folk rock? This album is mixed up. It's a mixed album in many respects. But I think it's a fantastic song. I think it's very underrated.
But it's definitely a rare gem. It's definitely hidden. Every Little Thing is a Paul song.
Yeah.
This is the first time they let John do the lead on a song that Paul wrote.
When I looked at the back of the album, when I got the album back in '65, I saw Ringo with these drums, and I didn't know what they were. They're also called kettle drums because they look like big kettles. And then years later, I discovered why there was a photograph of Ringo with these kettle drums, because he's playing timpani drums on Every Little Thing. And that is a new sound. And it makes the song very exciting. The Beatles knew, George Martin knew, that you have to keep changing things up. You just can't have two 2 guitars, bass, and drums on every song. You have to bring in other instruments. You have to use different guitars. You have to go from the electric to from the 6-string to 12-string to the 12-string acoustic to the nylon string classical guitar, and then bringing in other keyboards. You go from the Horner keyboard to the Vox organ to the Hammond organ in the studio. I mean, these are all tools. These are instrumental tools that they used to make the songs sound different. And the timpani drum absolutely set this song off in that direction. That's what I would say. It's a nice way to end the album, I'd say.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, it's a nice song to end the album with.
Yeah. The opening of the album is incredible. I mean, to go from Kansas City with such high energy and them having so much fun, and going through all these different songs that we mentioned, which are all very different with the exception of Dizzy, Miss Lizzie, and Bad Boy, which are extremely similar rock and roll songs. And then to end with this, it's a nice way to end it. So that's it. This is not one of my favorite Beatles albums. And also, as you probably know, this was recorded between a long stretch of time for them. They started recording it at the end of September 1964. And they were also recording at that time the material that ended up on Beatles 65. They were in early 65. They were starting filming on Help. They ended the recording sessions for Beatles 6 on May 10th, 1965. They were in the process. They were on the sets of Help. Whether it was in London, whether it was in the Austrian Alps, or where were they, in the Bahamas? Yeah, they were in the Bahamas. I always get confused between the Bahamas and Bermuda. I think it was the Bahamas.
It was Bahamas.
It was the Bahamas, yeah. So this is to your point, that they were in and out of the studio because they were making their movie, their second feature film. And maybe that's one reason why they didn't take the time, because maybe they didn't have the time and it was rushed, and we talked about the things that could have been fixed up, but they were probably too busy filming, is my thought.
You're right, because Help comes out in August, the next album that we're going to talk about, and the mania of A Hard Day's Night starts all over again. People get to see their favorite Beatles on the big screen, and it's a good album. It's a good album. It's a good movie, and it's an exciting movie just to see these guys in action.
Oh, I'm looking forward to getting into that one.
For the record, I'm not going to be happy with this. It's a soundtrack with a lot of instrumentals in it. So,
well, I couldn't figure that one, Tom.
Yeah, it's going to be. I'm going to be very sour. It's a deal.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much, Brooke Halpin, for the Beatles Coming to America.
My pleasure, Tom, and I'm sure glad that they did. And thanks so much for having me on the series.
Great. Thank you. The next episode, the Beatles Help soundtrack.
The Beatles Come to America. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Now, enjoy an original Brooke Halpin composition. Earth Still Meets Sky.
Days fade, seasons come and go, nights rest for the young and old. How far have we come? drones creep into our homes. Wi-Fi, monitor the drones. How far have we come? What have we done? The earth still meets the sky. The sun shines in your eyes, and life keeps racing by and by. Tech lines, lasers cut the sky. Touch screens minimize our lives. How far have we come? What have we done? And the earth still meets the sky. The sun shines in your eyes, and time keeps racing by and by, and the earth still meets the sky. The sun shines in your eyes, and time keeps racing by and by. The earth still meets the sky.
End of episode.